It is shamefully, utterly outrageous that the president is considering pardons for these rioters who broke the law, attacked our police officers on January 6th. Pardoning the criminals who assaulted police officers and tried to halt the democratic process would be a dangerous endorsement of political violence. It would send a message to the country and to the world that those who use force to get their way will not be punished. It is wrong, it is reckless, and it would be an insult to the memory of those who died in connection that day.
The FBI has provided the Trump Justice Department with details about the 5,000 FBI employees who worked on the January 6th cases. You heard me right. I said 5,000. Now, to put that in perspective, the number of people that the FBI has working on actual crime is 7. There are 38,000 total employees at the FBI, which means 13% of the entire FBI was working on January 6th cases. That's like dedicating an entire division to find out who took the last donut in the break room. If your agency can dedicate 5,000 people to a political witch hunt and still function, congratulations. You've officially admitted you're bloated beyond reason. In other news, the private sector is about to get an onslaught of new Starbucks baristas with federal surveillance experience.
Also today in D.C., Nancy Pelosi got off her broomstick just in time for a photo op. Look at this. She's putting out pictures of the National Guard sleeping in the Capitol, but she's taking pictures with them also outside the Capitol. What is she so afraid of? Why does she feel the need that she's got to be surrounded by the National Guard? Is it because possibly what went down in the Capitol last week when Jim Hoft reported that patriots had been inside of Nancy Pelosi's office, but more importantly, laptops went missing, and Steel Truth reported on that several times. We've ran video where it looked like military intelligence folks, people that looked like Antifa, but exclaimed to the reporter who was there filming that they were not there to be Antifa, and they were leaving the building with what looked like hard drives and laptops. Is that what she's absolutely afraid of? We also, there's the video. Thank you, producer Liz, for digging that up. These two gentlemen were seen being accused of being Antifa by patriots that were in the Capitol that day, watching what was going on. But instead, they told the person who was filming this, we're not here to be Antifa. In fact, they leaned in, I'm told, into that photographer's ear to say, we're not here to be Antifa today.
I think that what happened to George Floyd was an absolute tragedy, and he was murdered. I think that what happened to George Floyd was an absolute tragedy, and he was murdered. I think that what happened to George Floyd was an absolute tragedy, and he was murdered.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Ann Vandersteel, and this is Steel News Live. Today's show isn't going to be comfortable. Probably not even going to be easy. But as you know, I've been delivering the truth for a while, and it rarely is easy to deliver, although I have to say I enjoy dishing out the pain points here. At 1 o'clock today, we're going to be going into this massive story that's all about January 6th, but it's much bigger than January 6th, because I'm sitting here in Florida, and this is about loyalty. This is about betrayal, and this is about what happens when a man is crushed by the full weight of the federal government, then turns to elected officials who were supposed to represent him, only to find silence where courage should have been. My guest today is Chris Worrell. Chris is not a talking point. He has been a headline on occasion, and he definitely has had a prison number and a case number. But he's more than that. He's a man. He's a Floridian, a fellow Floridian, I might add. He's a voting constituent here, and we've got a primary August 18th, a very, very important primary, which will set the tone for Florida because Texas seemingly is falling. Despite some good patriots there, their leadership is still very corrupt. And we're looking at potentially getting corrupt leadership here. Chris Worrell is also a cancer survivor. He's a J6 defendant. He's a man whose life was turned upside down after January 6th. According to Congressional casework from Byron Donalds' own office, Chris Worrell was described as the J6 defendant who was denied medication, kept on house arrest, and who never entered the Capitol. Let me say that again. He never entered the Capitol. Do you guys hear what I'm saying? He never entered the Capitol. Yet Chris says his life was destroyed. He says he was raided. His wife was traumatized. His health collapsed. His cancer care was delayed. His name was smeared. His finances were wrecked. His family was forced to live under the weight of a federal machine that treated him not like an American citizen, but like the enemy of the state. Gee, how many of us have been treated like the enemy of the state? Thank God for that weaponization fund. We're going to talk about that as we get closer to it. And then Chris did what, of course, citizens are supposed to do. He went to his representative. He went to Byron Donalds. Why? Because Byron Donalds represented him. Chris was a Floridian after all. And Chris says he campaigned hard for Byron Donalds because Chris believed Byron Donalds would stand up for him. But when a fellow Floridian is being crushed, his congressman should not need a consultant, a poll, a staff, a memo, or any kind of permission from the political class to do the right thing. But according to Chris, Byron Donalds did not put him first. Sorry, my phone's ringing over here. Donald's office knew. They knew all about it. There's a paper trail that shows it. We're going to get into all of this and a whole lot more because this is really, really concerning when the fact that close people in his office knew all about it, all the abuse, the detention concerns, the lack of medical treatment. Where was Byron? Where was the floor speech in Congress like so many other good people? Louis Gohmert, Paul Gosar, right? Those were some good floor speeches. Where was the press conference on all of this? Where was Byron's opportunity to get totally into the form of public outrage? Where was that moment Byron Donalds stood before Florida and said, this is my constituent. This is the Floridian. This man trusted me. This man supported me, and I will not allow him to be forgotten. Yeah, well, Byron, baby, big tech, bank fraud Byron, that moment never came. And Chris Worrell is here to explain why this matters. In the meeting, we're going to review a conversation that he had because Chris did press Byron directly on the issue of federal overreach. We're going to get at all this and so much more. Before we get into that, we got to ask ourselves, did this have to happen? Was there any follow through? Was there any public leadership, or was Chris right when he said Byron Donalds knew and did not do enough? So let's bring Chris in and get right to business here because we're going to learn a little bit more about who Chris Worrell really is. Chris, welcome to Steel News. It's great to have you back. Thank you so much for being here. And we've got a lot of ground to cover on this exciting show. So first of all, if you don't mind, kind of take us back a little bit because you are a Florida resident and your name became part of the national J6 story. But we don't just want to reduce you to a case number. We want to talk about the man whose life was destroyed on January 6th. So why don't you go ahead and give us a little bit of background about J6 and who you were before that day?
Well, thanks, Ann, for having me again.
Yeah.
Who I was before that day, I was just your average community guy running $1 million auto shops, trying to survive in the world. And then 2016 came around and politics entered. Locally here, we had some BLM events, and one of the guys here down in Marco was assaulted by one, and nobody would stand up and defend him. So I voluntarily reached out to this guy who had no idea knew me. We didn't know each other, and I told Jason Beal, I'll walk with you no matter where you go, and if it's just me and you, it's just me and you. And then Proud Boys came around, and we did a tremendous amount around this state in defense of the Blue Line and helping children in Christmas. And we were all bastardized and labeled as some kind of domestic terrorist group, which is just hilarious. And then the morning, not long after J6, I mean, look, the feds, the JTTF agents, who were Collier County sheriffs first, came to my house in January 16th or 18th, talked to me for a little bit. They didn't like what I had to say about Antifa, BLM, and that, and why you at my house, but I didn't care. They left. magically, and I do believe it was through a very close confidential human source in Zone 5. I got what they call your third degree and a Proud Boy tattoo, and that day my warrant was signed on March 10th. March 12th, hell came down, and my wife was flash banged and held at gunpoint for hours. It turns out they weren't even surveilling your domestic terrorist that they had a warrant for on the 10th, because he left on the 11th on a scheduled canoe camp trip, river raid up in North Florida. And they weren't even surveilling me. So, because they didn't know that I wasn't home that fateful morning. And I do believe that the Lord saved my life that day, because had I been on the back porch at any given morning at 5:15 in the morning with the dog and a coffee and phone going through news, and the flashbang would have went off, I don't know how I reacted, but I can tell you what's been rehearsed by many men for decades, centuries in this country.
Oh, sure. What a horrific experience. You and so many others experienced similar, no-knock warrants and flashbang entries, scaring your family members and small children. Very fortunate you actually weren't home, because it might have resulted in you actually defending yourself as any normal citizen would have done if, they had the ability to.
Let me clarify one thing. They didn't toss the flashbang inside the house. They tossed it between the houses, which is a very short distance. Look, concrete building, you know what's going to happen. But I don't find it coincidental. And I do believe that one of their goals in this was they were hoping for one J6er to come out and defend himself.
Right.
And I don't find it coincidental. I find it very divine. I think it's the Lord's action, and not one of us came out and defended ourselves in that manner. And that tells you everything. It destroys their whole narrative that we were there to overthrow a government with flagpoles and a little bit of pepper spray.
Sure. So let's talk about what happened to you medically after your arrest and detention, because I think this is an important piece that people need to understand. Just, how bad it was for you inside, but, the life getting destroyed after, you faced significant medical, issues. You had cancer. And this was a very difficult time, because I recall talking about this publicly, either on Spaces or on my show, about the fact that we had a J6er who had cancer and was being medically neglected.
Yeah. And let me put a quick disclaimer out there for those that are going to try to untruth tell here.
Right.
Every single thing I say today is backed by clear evidence, many of which Ms. Vandersteel here has seen. So you can take that and take it for the truth of what you're going to get delivered here or not. It doesn't matter. But the weaponization of government on American citizens, it's my belief, and a few attorneys have said, look, the severe, intentional, meticulous even deprivation of human, civil, constitutional, and God, throw anything else you want in there, my rights. In my case, I don't think you can find another case that holds to the standard that they did with me. The amount of diesel therapy, the blatant denial of previously prescribed medications, and by some second, third level below the basement doctor in a DC jail declares that my doctor is unqualified, and it was all intentional. Look, I will make that a definitive statement, and everything. All of this was intentional. It is bordered on the lines of attempted murder with conspiracy. What they didn't want, they were hoping for, and my belief in DC Gulag was the amount of stabbings and deaths that happened in that building regularly was a known fact.
Yeah.
And the fact that they tried to subtly murder multiple of us, not just me, Lonnie Kaufman, we watched his hands go from purple fingertips up middle into his forearm, and they did nothing for it. But they locked us down when we started screaming and yelling for him. I mean, I'm not the only one that faced this weaponization, but
no.
Mine has the documentation to back every single J6er up.
And this is what I want to get to, because you met with Byron Donalds' office, and they were very aware of your cancer-related medical concerns, the Bureau of Prison concerns, all the transfer issues that
Daily.
you incurred, as well as all the urgent requests for attention. What was happening behind the scenes when you were meeting with Byron Donalds' office? Because I think that, you know, people need to understand that you were engaged in the process of reaching out to your dutifully elected congressional representative, for which you campaigned heavily. Byron knew who you were.
Right.
And so just kind of walk us through that process a little bit.
Yeah. So for those that know, like, I'm not in your typical unknown constituent only by name. Me and Byron, we had a relationship. I campaigned for him back I stopped a crazy lunatic woman from driving through his crowded seat the table at one of his events. When I was home on Ankle Mart, we went to the same church here in Naples. We were known. We knew each other. His crony buddy there, Larry, knows me. Like, I'm known in this community. Probably because I'm loud mostly, but you know, you get what you get. So the fact that I sat down with Byron multiple times throughout 22, 23, when I was home on ankle monitor, talked with him. I had constant communication with Mercedes Price Harry, his deputy director, either by phone or by emails from jails. My wife, like, he had consistent, daily, many times evidence of everything happening to me. And if it wasn't for Mercedes, none of this would have ever came to any light. She did 98% of the work. He did nothing. He did not lead. He sat. And he told me right to my face finally in June of 25 at a very public meeting, the Naples Grand at the bar area during a law enforcement convention. There was nothing he could do. It brought up to him the fact that I believe it was Louis Gohmert and Paul Gosar both mentioned my name in the summer of 21. I knew that I was being tortured, but the man that I campaigned for, that I saved lives at his event, all that went to hell. It was politics first.
Did you believe he actually cared? And did you actually believe Byron Donalds, you know, comprehended what had happened to you and other J6ers?
Oh, let me make it. He 1,000,000% comprehended everything. He knows it. So he can't come out from underneath that rock. I didn't know this. Yes, you did, Byron. And I challenge you to a public debate on this subject anywhere, anytime. You'll never debate. So he knew and was well aware. He chose to do nothing.
When did you first begin to think Byron Donalds was not going to fight for you?
When I had to sadly get his attention at church after church was over, and I would go up to him and tap him on the shoulder. Hey, Byron, how's it going? And the blank stare and the deer in the headlights look like crap. I'm stuck. It was clear in his eye. Look, the eyes of men and women tell all the truth you need to know if you know how to read.
Mm-hmm.
And we've unfortunately got a crash course in how to read. And it's the 3% has turned into the 1% of the 1% of the 1%. That's what's left to stand for this country.
Okay. So let's walk through what it was like when you sat down with Byron Donalds. Let's set the scene. What did you hope for happen? What did you first tell him? In other words, when you walked in there, what was the most pressing point in your mind that you needed to convey to Byron Donalds, that when you left, you felt confident he fully comprehended that and that he was going to take action? And if he was, what was that action going to look like?
Well, if you've heard the audio of this meeting and you can attest to, and maybe you'll pay notice to what I'm going to say here now. When he first walked up to me, you'll hear that I made it a point. He tried to overstay. No, because I want to hear from you. No, I made him tell me, hey, what's going on? What are you doing for Florida? And I was insisting on it a couple of times in the first few seconds as he walked up. I insisted he tell me what he was going to do. And he very predictably said nothing about anything related to J6, weaponization, Fedsurrection, nothing. So I gave him the microphone right off the bat.
Okay.
And he told me exactly what I knew I was coming in there for. A big nothing burger.
So early in this meeting, and I did listen to the audio, you actually raised the issue of Collier County, the JTTF, and a local deputy who was allegedly involved in your case. Why was that important to bring to his attention?
I have a problem constitutionally with the fact that we had a normal situation in this state and many others, that we had, in this instance, sheriffs, deputy sheriffs, working as sheriffs for better than 20 years in this case. Alex Grandy, who then became part of a JTTF, Joint Terrorism Task Force. Ladies and gentlemen, that's absolutely FBI. And acknowledged so by one of the under sheriffs and others and one of the chiefs that I have a relationship with here. But what I find strikingly odd is the fact that they admitted to me that they have no idea what he was doing during this block of time where he's with the JTTF. And I brought up this fact.
Shouldn't a local sheriff know what happens in his own county when federal agents come for a citizen? I mean, isn't that a constitutional issue?
Well, we're not even there yet. Let's get to the fact that they didn't even know what their deputy was doing or nothing while he's collecting a paycheck from the sheriff's department and the JTTF, but he's Collier County first. They have zero records, nothing. They don't know anything. They can't tell me anything. Zero accountability through the Collier County Sheriff's Department for this JTTF agent. Then you have the fact that he came to my house as a FBI agent. I have his card. Interviewed me. Had no probable cause. Other for anything. Okay, come talk to me. There's your probable cause. Great. You knocked on my door. I told you I'm not going to let you inside. We talked outside. You had nothing. You still have nothing. You convicted me on a picture. Not one piece of video evidence you have, but yet those same people on March 12th took my body cam into custody, and they want you to believe I wore that for show and that there wasn't 7 hours, 26 minutes, and 32 seconds of continuous footage on that body cam. Why did they delete it? Why did they vaporize it? Why did my attorney never go to the FBI as promised multiple times and go try to figure any of that out? Why was it never presented in court as I asked?
So Byron Donalds actually said, I mean, these are great questions. And before I go to mine, I'm going to pull this over to Kashif Hussein, who's in LinkedIn, and he's asking this question. He says, is the FBI protecting national security or protecting the political establishment? Why has public trust in the FBI declined despite its expanding powers?
The deep state is deep. That's why.
That's right. The FBI is a unconstitutional organization. It was never chartered properly. It is not even required in our Constitution, but it is really the Gestapo for Congress to run around and make sure that nobody gets held accountable. They protect the criminals is what it looks like, with an occasional show arrest to make it look like they're doing something.
That's right.
Yeah.
And so that was the point of these raids where they pulled up 20 to 30 armed men, park a Bearcat outside your front door as close as they can get it, flashbang your wife. Right. What is that show for? That's not a show of justice. That is a show to tell your neighbors and the surrounding area, hey, go ahead. We dare you.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. That is 100% what it is.
And they tried to murder me multiple times through DC jail mistreatment, through the BOP. And I stand on this conviction. I will die for this country. And I mean that in a literal sense. You can come, and the only way you're going to quiet me down is to take me out. Yeah. You tried a few times. You failed. And let me make this clear. Byron Donalds is complicit in the attempted murder of me.
That's right.
Because he did nothing.
That's right.
I challenge anybody to that legal argument.
I don't see how anybody can try to circumvent that legal argument, because Byron Donalds was very clear in that audio tape. He said he needed to understand the agreement between agencies, the command structure, and the accountability structure. That was a weird thing to say, right? Did that sound like leadership to you, or did it sound like some kind of delay and sounds like somebody was just throwing anything at the wall to make it sound fancy, like he knew what he was talking about, so he could just, basically circumnavigate or circumvent this entire issue and not deal with it at all?
He doesn't need to understand anything except read this book. But he won't. And that's 98% of our Congress, senators, right. Everyone in charge. They're elected representatives. People make them represent. And until we, the people, do it, they're not going to do it.
Right.
Sorry for my anger.
No. Look, it's quite all right. That meeting actually has, the meeting basically created an action item for Byron Donalds, right? He was supposed to clarify the FBI JTTF protocols. He was going to contact Kash Patel and Dan Bongino, and he was going to document the chain of command. Did you ever see any follow through from Byron Donalds?
He had no intention of following through on anything. Maybe he had a minion do a few things. I never saw those results. Because
did he ever come back to you with any concrete answers at all?
He doesn't want to talk to me. Never had any intention of talking to me after that day in June.
Does he ever publicly raise your name?
Never brings up J6, except now he's grifting. Oh, I support Donald Trump in this $1.776 billion. Sit your ass down.
Yeah, right. When did you feel, what did you actually feel when you left that meeting that day? Did you feel like you could trust Byron Donalds more or less, or what?
The anger and rage that I knew was going to build inside me, and I just had to walk out of there. I mean, how do you deal with the intentional incompetence like that when it's right in your face? And many men and women too would understand. You just have to walk away, because what you're wanting to do to somebody that basically takes your life and tosses it to the side like it's trash. Oh man, there's a lot of angry options in that.
Sure. I'd like to just spend a minute and just kind of break down this whole idea of JTTF in plain English for the audience, Joint Terrorism Task Force. Why should every Florida voter care about local deputies embedded in a federal task force, particularly if Byron Donalds was supposed to look into it and come back to you with some level of accountability? Why should we care?
I'll tell you why you should care, because your constitutional rights will be trampled on. And it's not if, it's when they're coming back. They will come back for people like me. All the J6ers are on the top of the list. They've added ICE agents. They tell you on the microphone, ladies and gentlemen, believe these people when they tell you they're going to come. We can't maintain control forever. Mostly because it's the less than 1% of the 1% of the 1%.
Right.
Nobody's willing to sacrifice anything for this country. And I'm sorry, audience, but you all go home and sit down in your chair and watch it on TV, and you talk about action, but you don't do it. And that's why people like me have paid this price. And we hope we paid the last price.
Sure. So, you have compared, the JTTF, and you've argued that when a sheriff's deputy joins a federal task force, he's still a local deputy first. But you also compare that to sort of that of military service. And even in a joint operation, you still belong to your branch first. So why is that analogy so important?
Well, you took an oath. Your oath is to honor the Constitution in the United States first. If you're doing one single thing that goes against the rule of law in this country, the United States Constitution, it is your duty at any level to not perform and to tell about it.
Okay.
That's the oath you take, whether it's a badge, a military uniform, whatever it is. That's your first duty.
All right. I'd like to move over to Byron Donalds' office. There was separate staff, a lady by the name of Mercedes, who worked for Byron Donalds in his office. Mercedes Price Harry was her name. She worked as his deputy district director. And there's documents that I'll put up on the screen here in a second that show that she communicated about your case, DOJ letters, medical issues, and Bureau of Prison concerns. But
Yes.
her work, frankly, according to you, only underscores Byron's failure to personally lead. So I'm going to put up here on the stage what one of her this is an email thread. Let me see if I can make it bigger so we can all see it here. But in her email thread, sorry, I just want to get to it exactly. In her email thread, she actually recognizes all of the grievances you've had. Why don't you walk us through what her email thread is, kind of covering?
Well, I mean, it's probably, I can't really see it from my end, thanks to being almost 55. But I can already tell you, it's everything I've told you about, from the day they came to the house and raided, to the court actions by the Antichrist Chief Judge Howell at the time, her ignoring my doctor's notes and affidavits stating I needed immediate medical help early on in 21, all the way through Judge Lamberth, the contempt hearing on the DC jail, the DC DOC director, Quincy Booth, the warden, Wanda Patton. It was referred to the DOJ. Of course, Merrick Garland wasn't going to do anything about it. We knew that, but it's on the record. I'm sure it encompasses all that, including my mistreatment, intentional mistreatment in the FMC, the Federal Medical Center at Butner, North Carolina. Look, I was on the cancer floor for 1 week short of 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
And it finally came to a head where one officer had threatened me for not being able to go to work because I was hurting. I was running a full-time job in a kitchen and then a part-time job on suicide watch, which is like the toppest prestigious job you can get in the BOP. Right. And I called out my supervisor in the kitchen wouldn't let me work because of my obvious physical condition. He looked at me, and then I called into work to miss out at 6:00 p.m. at 11 in the morning. That officer went on a tirade to my 4th floor and everything, telling me I'm faking it, the whole 9 yards. He's going to write me up. I start writing grievances now, and immediately they booted me down the road to the low, like,
right,
without any notice.
Right.
But you did nothing for me for 6 months. The oncologist put in my medical records. I think it was the 4th day I was there, which I got there on a Friday. And let's make sure I come back to that and how I got there. On a Tuesday, the oncologist puts in my medical records, my cancer's in remission. Well, holy cow, the Lord himself must have came down, because he had a divine prognosis for me with no testing. Or it was a lie. Which one was it, ladies and gentlemen? It's obvious. They never did nothing.
Right. So it's, from the correspondence that I've putting up on the screen here, it shows that Mercedes Price Harry was actively involved going back to 2023. She was very involved in your case.
And it started before that. She had been
Right.
to my house a few times while I was under, house arrest.
Right.
And so we're not new to each other either. So this really did culminate right after I got home in 21. And
Right.
but her communications, I understand, is current, 23, 24.
The congressional casework here in this document, this email, Chris, it shows that she was writing about your situation. It looks like all your medical issues. And she put forth efforts to get a lot of attention on the J6 detainee abuse. So
Yes.
from where you're sitting, going through this paperwork, all of these emails for which Byron Donalds, had a couple of comments, one in February of 2023, what is the process for a congressional stay? And then eventually he just said, we need to write a letter to the DOJ. What does this paper trail prove to you? Did Byron Donalds ever match Mercedes' urgency publicly?
I bet he only knew of maybe 10% of it. Because I will say this, and I'll say it to his face again, his little minion Jesse was the gatekeeper. We know, and I know, and I made this aware
And I
in my
see that right
interview.
here on January 20th. Megan has waiting for Jesse to speak with Megan. He spoke with Byron Donalds, and they are devising a plan. Not sure what Megan will say.
I made it very clear in that meeting on audio. You heard it, Jesse. You were the gatekeeper. I had other people in that office, and I made this aware to them in multiple meetings. Mercedes was not my only contact. I had a couple other people in his other offices that were telling me stuff, and it never could get past Jesse. He was the gatekeeper.
And Jesse, what does Jesse do for Byron Donalds' office?
He's his number one, right above Mercedes. Mercedes is his number two, his deputy. I don't know what you label the guy. Coward. That's what I label him. Coward, garbage.
So
traitor.
I'm looking at this email right here, February 24th, where Mercedes writes a long email and she sends it to Chris Plow and in the House. And she says, bear with me here and let me know if you choose not to include any of this, but it is important to note the jail conditions, private or not. Why is our DOJ using this facility even when Judge Lambreth scorned them for the conditions, yet no attempts to fix it? And again, we had members of Congress go to the DC gulags to try and advocate and were turned away.
Right after I left out of there.
Right.
Right after my November 4th hearing.
Correct. And Mercedes goes on to say, Judge Tim Kelly is a partisan, biased judge with some concerning associations and a Trump-hating deranged warden to boot. It's DC Trump-hating juries, defense attorneys, prosecutors, cooks, abusive guards, etc. Good question to ask is why the DOJ is allowing this to happen in America, let alone our capital. Below are some issues they should answer as well. Solitary confinement, contaminated food, food rations, water shutoff, refused lawyer visitations, refused family visitations, phones and email tablets shut off for days. Laundry bags would be returned smelling like human urine and could not be used. Guards constantly harassed inmates in the middle of the night with lights and banging, not allowing sleep. Random beatings in the middle of the night and threats of harm, especially after the contempt on the warden and DC Department of Corrections director. So she really, I think, lays it out here. And I'm wondering, did you ever see Byron Donalds use any of this information on his platform the way Louis Gohmert and Paul Gosar use theirs for J6 detainees?
I'm going to say it like this. Have you ever seen a Democrat fight for the constitutional rights of any of their constituents? Because that's what Byron Donalds is. He's a Democrat from New York, ladies and gentlemen. Came from the ghettos up there in the district. I'm from Eastern Long Island. I know a little bit about the early day Byron Donalds. So he's one of the coincidental group in large basket. Imagine how many people all of a sudden magically became Republicans in around 2010.
Right.
And if y'all think that that's just coincidence and that they're just here to be constitutionalists and fight for you, it's 100% a lie.
Yeah. It's funny how that works out. So I guess this isn't an issue with Mercedes, but judging by what I see
No,
in these emails. Is it an
she
issue with
deserves
Byron
a
Foley?
trophy. She deserves a trophy, an award, a medal, something for everything she did for me. She does. But it went nowhere because we all know how that political game works. It only goes somewhere if it works in politics. And it was
So
bad
what
for
should he have
Byron's
done?
image.
What should Byron have done? And why don't you believe he didn't do what you think he should have done? What should he have done?
Oh, well, he didn't do it because it wasn't cool. It's that simple, ladies and gentlemen. It wasn't cool. There's only a few people like yourself, Ann, that rode this train hard all the way from the beginning from January 6th. And none of them, most of the people bowed out because it wasn't cool. It would have hurt their career. It would have hurt them down the road. They can't get to governor of Florida. It's not happening, Byron. Write this down, sir. It's not happening. I will go on a campaign around Florida. I don't know how I'll afford it, but I'm going to do it.
So what does this silence communicate to the bureaucracy? What is Byron Donalds' silence on what happened to one of his ardent supporters who is a constituent who suffered mercilessly in prison and out for a variety of reasons that were documented very well by Mercedes? What does this silence actually tell and communicate to the bureaucracy today?
He's a traitor, plain and simple.
Do you think the J6 families see that? Do you think this silence communicates that same message to other J6 families?
If it doesn't, I don't know. For those particular people, for those that don't get that from the J6 community, I don't understand. For the rest of the world in our Florida, consider my community members, I talk to people all the time. I always wear a shirt similar to this, and I antagonize. I want people to reach out. On the back of this shirt, it's that big. So I want people to, or I'll wear a Trump shirt or something. Hey, nice shirt. Well, that antagonizing. Hey, excuse me for a second. You mind if I tell you a story? And they're always blown away. And I thought we were going to vote for Byron Donalds. And no. And I tell them why. And I give them my card. And I say, if you want evidence, I'll give it to you. And for the independent that just put up the stupid leftist comment, you're going to vote Republicans out. Your boat sank a long time ago. Remember, we moved you to the gutter. Your movement has been moved to the gutter, ladies. You leftist retards. Go back to the gutter, grab your nursing home people, and go crawl out there.
Do you feel used, abandoned by your own representative at this point?
Yes, 1,000%. By all of them, because he's not the only one that I reached out to. I ran into Jim Jordan here at Seat the Table while I was on ankle monitor and gave him a card back by chance. And he said nothing. And of course, we've seen it matches as nothing. He's done nothing. Where is the new J6 committee? We see a name. We've seen nothing else.
That's right.
They have no intention. They're complicit. They knew what was happening that day.
So what do you want the people of Collier County to know about Byron Donalds that the rest of Florida may not know?
Same as I say a lot, he will let you die over politics. And I have the proof of that. I have a witness right in front of us, ladies, that has seen some of the proof. I have piles of it.
What should Florida voters ask Byron Donalds directly?
Resign. Put your head down and walk away the way you've walked away.
So do you think he put his ambition, his own political ambition, ahead of you, the constituent?
Look at his money. Look at where he's gotten money. How did he make all these millions of dollars on a congressman's salary? Well, we know one thing is him and his wife stole money from parents here in this county for their fake school. And attacked others that were trying to do something right with a school here in town too. And those videos are out there.
Yep, they are.
He's a bully thug.
There is a great website, ByronDonaldFacts.com, and
yes,
it's going
It's
up on the
missing a lot
screen
of
right
my
now.
facts. I hope they'll add to it.
Yeah, this is a great website. It's up on the screen right now, byrondonaldsfacts.com. I highly recommend people to take a look at it. This website is full of facts about Byron Donalds, how he is soft on crime, how he sold out Floridians on AI data centers with a very big profit motive. I call him big tech Byron. Bank fraud Byron also is congressional stock trades and self-enrichment. He's always changing his story on his drug dealer past. He's definitely had woke racial politics. I played a clip from him on George Floyd. And then, of course, his do nothing, no agenda record. He doesn't even show up to vote. He's got the 4th worst voting record for showing up to vote in Congress. I mean, this guy simply should not be sitting in the seat of power.
Right.
There definitely is some areas of concern when it comes to disqualifying Byron and why he should, not be fit to be governor.
Can I put out a little statement here too?
Yeah,
And
please do.
look, ladies and gentlemen, I'm not here to smash, bash, none of that. I'm here to deliver you truth.
Yeah.
Somebody that's trying to run the freest state, one of the freest states in this country. And if we continue to allow people like Byron Donalds that don't give a shit about you run states in this country, the republic is dead. This is our last stand. I believe this is our last stand. When Trump walks away because he's no longer president, and that, what's going to happen in 4, 8, 12 years? Are you going to stand? Are you going to come out of your house? Are you going to sacrifice something other than talk about? Because if you're not active, and I'm talking about activism, I'm not talking about going to the corner and punching somebody in the face before anybody decides to switch that up. If you don't actively, if your kids go to school, be part of the school.
That's
Do
right.
something. That's why this country's gone. That's why us 55-year-old people have watched our country get washed away in the 80s when your neighbors weren't even your neighbors anymore, even though you lived in a small community.
That's right. I'm going to take a quick commercial break because I want to come back and I want to kind of, sort of rapid fire go through some questions with you, Chris, about what you want now. So I hope everybody can just stand by. Want to, give our sponsors an opportunity to at least get a little bit of love and also help some folks that might be in trouble with CPS, Child Protective Services, family law courts. Our foundation, American Made Action nonprofit, has actually taken a big role in going after this stuff. So we'll be right back after this quick commercial break.
Looks like you've been sleeping well.
Megan, he's back. The My Pillow guy.
And you're looking good.
Still feeling good.
Well, just when you thought it couldn't get any better, we've got the best pillow ever, My Pillow 2.0. When I invented My Pillow, it had everything you'd ever want in a pillow. Well, now there's new technology that makes it even better. My Pillow 2.0 has my patented fill combined with a cooling fabric with temperature regulating thread. My Pillow 2.0 is truly the next generation of My Pillow.
Now's the time to go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use the promo code to save 50% on your MyPillow 2.0. Not only that, for a limited time, your entire order ships absolutely free.
You're sleeping even better.
And cooler, too.
And you're looking good.
Feeling good.
I knew you would.
mypillow.com.
And welcome back. We've been sitting here talking with Chris Worrell, a J6er, who has a lot to say about Byron Donalds, who's running to be the next governor of Florida. But what we've learned is Byron Donalds, who had extensive conversations with Chris Worrell, as well as Chris speaking with his top brass in his office and emails documented that we've shown earlier in the program. If Byron would not publicly fight for Chris Worrell, a fellow Floridian, his own constituent, a man who supported him and campaigned for him, then Florida voters have every right to ask whether Byron Donalds can be trusted with the power of the governor's office. And, despite the fact that there's been serious concerns and pain and feelings of abandonment, I'd like to get back with Chris now and find out what Chris wants now. So joining me back to finish this conversation is Chris Worrell. Chris, thanks for being here. I want to go away from the accusation stuff where we've kind of laid it out, and I want to get into the remedy. What do you want Byron Donalds to do now?
Resign.
Is that all he can do to make this right? Just resign?
Oh, he can't make anything he wronged right. There's nothing he can do. Go back to the rock in which you came from under.
Okay. What about Florida lawmakers? What do you want them to do?
Hold him responsible. I hear these things of immunity, et cetera, but I don't understand immunity when you're complicit in the you're willfully complicit in ignoring your constituents' deprivation of life. And that deprivation of life doesn't even come close to the explanation.
Should Florida investigate J6 related raids involving Florida local officers?
Yeah, I mean, look, it's my belief and proof of, because they won't give me anything to dispute. They violated the Extradition Act. There are rules there. You're supposed to go before a jurisdictional judge. They make this, he said, well, we took you to Tampa to see, or to Fort Myers and before a Tampa judge on Zoom. But the rules are specific. The governor should have been aware. I have the right to waive my right to extradition, giving them power to take me. Or
right.
The governor can oversign that if I refuse to. That didn't happen. But I was diesel therapy pre-trial, ladies and gentlemen, on the premise of a picture, and given diesel therapy across this country, across the country.
Should Florida audit these joint terrorism task force agreements that we have, that where our local sheriffs can get involved and they sort of retire the badge and the hat and they become part of the federal apparatus? Should we fully audit this?
Well, from my understanding, I think it needs to be done legally in some legal way. But it's my understanding, and I've gotten this from multiple people in Collier County Sheriff's Office, the JTTF agent thing to Florida is at least 98% gone. I know in our county it's alleged, and I've seen enough evidence to believe it's true. They all walked away. And let me make a point too. Isn't it funny how I made it known on all my jail phone calls, I'm coming for Alex Grandy's badge. And isn't it funny, right after the election, he retired. So now I want his pension. And I've made this clear. The man doesn't deserve a penny. He trampled on American citizens because he was told to. It may be his number one excuse, which bears no legal reference. There's nothing. You followed unjust orders.
So should Florida create a state level protection protocol when federal agencies target Floridian or Florida residents?
But yeah, I mean, I even proposed that question to Byron Donalds at our meeting last June and said to us, and he agreed with me that there should have been oversight. There needs to be, hey, the feds are knocking on the border of Florida. Here, Mr. Governor, here's what we're planning on doing. What are you going to do to help us?
But yet nothing.
There's none of that.
But yet nothing. You got nothing like that. No leadership out of Byron Donalds to actually follow through with points and perspectives that he was taking. So tell me, what does justice ultimately look like for you personally, and what does it look like for the broader J6 community?
Justice, I believe, I can speak for a bunch of J6ers in that this weaponized government needs to be held accountable. They raided unborn children, were or have died. People have committed suicide. Bart Shively died from the same cancer I had due to the neglect. A decorated Marine, by the way. So what shouldn't happen? They shouldn't walk away from this unscathed. That's what shouldn't happen. They need to be put in the same jails and the cells we were in. But first, they got to fix the jail, because otherwise they're going to get treated like kings. And just like your guy that was put in D.C. jail, and allegedly he's in, his lawyers complaining about being in solitary confinement. They don't have a clue.
Incredible. I want to pull one thing out that you sent me. Dozens of threats came up under the United States Postal Service. And you posted this on X back in May of this year. Actually, it was today.
That was today's post. Yeah, but I've posted this before.
Yeah. So walk us through this, because, what you're showing here, and I'll blow this up here in a second, but what you're showing here is the fact that Secret Service now, per you, has been made aware of threats to the president. And It seems like there's nothing going on. Tell us what these postcards are, how you got them, who received them, etc.
Well, J6ers have been getting cards from this Trump derangement syndrome guy for years, since the beginning. We got him in jail. We got him in prisons. We got him at home. The big card is the latest one I just got last week. In one of the three that is flipped over in the smaller picture, I believe it's the bigger one to the left, but you can see the last sentence, the way I placed those out. That was right before Netanyahu was coming to Mar-a-Lago a few months back. So I reached out to the Miami Secret Service office. And while I was on the phone, I emailed them a copy of the one I got from prison, and the one I just got. And they told me, matter of factly, looking at them, there's no direct threat. There's nothing we can do. Now, since then, we've had 2 more assassination attempts. And I'm not the only one that receives these.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want to play the premise that the leftists tried to do with gun control, and I hate the argument, but they put the shoe out, so I'll try to put it on here. They've got some deranged retard out there calling for people to Second Amendment Donald Trump, while there's assassination attempts through Second Amendment Donald Trump.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't act on that, because I bet if I made a crazy X account right now with some unknown name and I put 8647 today on it,
right,
I bet they find out who I am.
Oh, I'm sure they would. I'm sure they would.
They would love to parade it, and then I would embarrass them. Maybe I'll pull the psyop. I'm saying it live on channel here. We know they don't listen to everything. I'll do the psyop. Let's see if it happens. So I can embarrass them with the fact that I put it out there and said this is what you would do to a right-wing guy. Because that's what you've labeled me. I'm a domestic terrorist. I've seen it on BOP computer screens. They never would use the term for any of us for good reason. They knew. But yet here they are. I got to cut myself off and be quiet, because I'll just keep going.
No, I hear you. No, you're angry, and rightfully so. You've been let down by a lot of people, except maybe the J6 community. And the one guy that you went and supported with everything you had, Byron Donalds, your own congressman, let you down.
My first line of defense in the government.
Right.
Failed.
Right.
Miserably, intentionally.
So looking at everything holistically here, what you've been through, what is your warning to Florida?
Warning to Florida and the whole country is hold these people accountable.
How?
You can't do it with groups of 5, 10. Get your community together the way it used to happen.
Yeah.
And demand action, or the republic is gone. We fought. Everything that I faced will be in vain. the deaths, the 30 some odd people that are dead for J6 over this. None of them police officers, ladies and gentlemen, stop regurgitating that stupid sewage. Only 4 Americans died that day. Ashley Babbitt's murderer. Why is Bird walking free today? Why is Lila Morris walking free today for beating the crap at Roseanne Boylan to death?
Yeah.
But they want to still get up today and tell you that officers died that day. Recently, today's post, I guarantee you there's posts about it today.
Yeah, I know. The gaslighting continues. Chris Worrell, I have to say, I appreciate you taking the time to talk about this. You know, it's a very difficult story. It's a painful story. I have to say, when I commented before we started, I said, wow, you look really great. And you've been working really hard to restore your health. And thank God for God's grace.
Yeah, I got to give some praise to some people that donated meds to me. And
who's that? Go ahead.
That.
You have the floor. Who do you want to put out there?
I can't disclose public for fear. They've already been involved in threats and that. But it's a legitimate doctor. A legitimate doctor.
Great. I'm so glad for that. That's wonderful. You know, they've got a great group over in Collier County in Naples, Florida. A lot of strong patriot over there. Alfie Oakes being one of them, Simone Gold being another one, the Kiley family over there, and many others. You know, you're very blessed to have a good group of people around you, and for that, we should all be grateful. I appreciate you taking the time because you know what you went through is horrific. What all the J6ers went through. You and I sat on that Zoom call with Peter Tickton and Mark the other day.
Another traitor. He wants in now because now there's money maybe. Oh, let me get back in. My health is cured. And if I can make one final statement to the people. Oh, totally just escaped me, but it was J6ers need our communities to pick up the torch and carry this message of weaponization. Yeah, I could do it all day and I'll do it all day and night. But it doesn't carry weight other than when strangers, community members carry these torches and demand that this cannot happen for fear for your family's life. And that's not an embellishment. Please carry the J6 torch.
All right. We're going to let you close that there. Chris Worrell, thank you so much. Please give my wife your best. God bless you. And stay close because we've got a lot of work to do here in Florida, and we need the J6ers. You guys were our first line of defense to really call to arms the travesty that went on with the election theft. And we're getting there. Yes. The wheels of justice are slow. I hope we can do something meaningful before the midterms because people deserve to know who's on the right side of history. And clearly you are. Byron Donalds? Yeah, not at all. God bless you, Chris. Thank you for being here.
God bless you. And anytime, any place.
Thank you. Okay. Wow. Byron Donalds, he knew, according to this interview with Chris Worrell and according to the documents I've read, Byron Donalds knew. And you're right, Marcus Mean. I don't blame him for being bitter about how he has been treated and ignored by our representatives. Touche, too right. Before we close today, I want to make something very clear. This is not just a J6 story. This isn't even a story about Chris Worrell, as bad as it is, somebody who didn't even go into the Capitol. This is a story about failure of a representative. It's a story about Byron Donalds failing a fellow Floridian. Chris Worrell, great guy. He just, this wasn't a stranger to Byron. He didn't come from another state to, jump on the Byron bandwagon and cheer from, the cheap seats. No, he was someone that was in Byron Donalds' district. He was a real constituent. He is a Floridian. He's a guy who believed in Byron. He supported Byron Donalds and campaigned hard for Byron Donalds. This is what you do when you believe in a representative that's going to do the work for you. In other words, they still work for us, but we're helping them get there. That's what you do, right? It's mutual. It's symbiotic. But when Chris Worrell needed Byron Donalds most, Byron didn't put him first. That's the bottom line here, folks. Chris was fighting for his life. He was dealing with cancer. He was dealing with federal prosecution. He was dealing with prison medical neglect. He was dealing with the aftermath of J6, the raid on his house, the trauma to his wife, the collapse of his livelihood, the destruction of his good name. And you know what? Byron Donalds' office knew. I just showed you the paper trail. It was detailed out very nicely by Mercedes Price Harry, Byron Donalds' own deputy district director, because she was working the case. She was writing, she was emailing, she was calling people, she was pushing the Department of Justice and the Bureau of Prisons. She was trying to get answers. She was trying to help Chris Worrell. The office knew that Chris had cancer-related medical concerns. Byron Donalds' office knew he was being shuffled through the system. His office knew there were urgent questions about treatment, detention, abuse. But where was Byron? Where was this congressman? Oh, yeah, probably doing another Fox or CNN hit because he was missing so many votes in Congress. Remember, the fourth worst voting record is Byron Donalds because he just doesn't show up. He had an opportunity to jump on the bandwagon and demonstrate his public outrage. He could have had floor speeches. He could have had press conferences. He could be out there pounding the gavel, demanding for accountability. There was never that moment when Byron Donalds could have stood before Floridians and said, "This is my constituent. This is a Floridian. This man campaigned for me. He trusts me. I'm not going to allow him to be forgotten." No, yeah, Byron, you, honey, that moment never came. Paul Gosar and Louis Gohmert, they were stand-up. They were willing to publicly speak about J6 detainees while Chris Worrell was sitting in prison. But Byron Donalds, yeah, not so much. That was the guy who represented Chris. He didn't even make Chris Worrell a public cause. You know what, folks? That's weak. That's not leadership. It's a total failure. So we got to stop pretending that process is courage. Because taking a meeting with somebody isn't courage. That's what you do. It's part of your job description. A staff email, it isn't courage. Sending a little quiet letter to the DOJ, ooh, yeah, that's not courage. A promise to look into it, nah, that's not courage either. Courage is when you stand up when it costs you something, when it costs you everything, like these J6ers. Courage is saying the name of the man that the regime wants buried. Courage is taking the political heat because a fellow Floridian is being crushed, and you have the power, the platform, and the duty to fight back. Byron Donalds, he has that duty. He had that duty, and he failed. He failed miserably. Chris Worrell didn't ask Byron for celebrity treatment. He didn't ask for any favors. He just simply asked for his own representative to fight for him. Remember Trump? Fight, fight, fight. Well, Donalds was going to expose, or should have exposed, what was happening. And he should have put a constituent above political ambition, but he didn't do any of that. And that should tell you, Floridians, everything you need to know, because if Byron Donalds wouldn't publicly fight for Chris Worrell, a man from his own district, a fellow Floridian, a supporter, a campaigner, a J6 defendant with cancer, a man whose life had been turned upside down, then why the hell would Floridians believe that Byron Donalds will fight for them when the federal machine comes knocking? Why should any Floridian believe Donalds will stand between them and federal overreach? Why should any patriot believe he will put the people first? Yeah, you know what, folks? Look it up. Governors don't get to hide behind staff. You can't just hide behind the idea of a process you're going to look into. You don't get to say my office handled it while a man is sitting in jail, sick, broke, and wondering whether or not the congressman he helped even elect has the courage to say his name. We don't need any more of these scumbag, polished politicians who just show up for photo ops and disappear when the fight gets real. We want a fighter. We want a governor who puts Floridian first. And we need a leader who understands that when one citizen is crushed by federal abuse, every citizen is at risk. Byron Donalds had a chance to prove he was that leader. Chris Worrell gave him that chance. The record gave him that chance. The moment gave him that chance. And Byron Donalds failed. Not even a swing and a miss. He didn't even step up to plate. That's why this matters. Because this is bigger than one campaign, bigger than one congressional seat, bigger than one headline. This is a test of character. And when Chris Worrell needed Byron Donalds didn't rise to the moment. When a constituent who campaigned for him needed a champion, he didn't show up. That is totally disqualifying. Byron Donalds is not fit to be governor of Florida. A man who will not fight for his own constituent in a crisis cannot be trusted to fight for an entire state. Chris Worrell deserves better. Florida deserves better. And every voter in the state should ask Byron Donalds one simple question. You knew, Byron. Why didn't you fight? All right, that concludes my rant. It is 2:11. Want to say good afternoon to everybody. I'm Ann Vandersteel with Steel News. As always, stay vigilant, stay prayerful, stay bold, and never stop demanding the truth. You guys have a great, great afternoon.